I stood in the doorway, clutching the paperwork for Sarah's treatment. It was experimental, expensive, and her only hope. My children, Julian and Isabel, were at the dining table, their faces illuminated by the glow of their phones. "Please," I pleaded, my voice strained. "It's your mother." Julian didn't look up from his screen. "That's your problem, Dad." Isabel offered a silent, dismissive nod. A month later, Sarah was gone. They didn't attend the funeral. That night, I swore their callousness would cost them everything they held dear. This wasn't about vengeance, but about a debt being paid in full. I knew exactly how to collect. I was in the entryway of Julian's condo, the medical report crumpled in my hand. Sarah's diagnosis, stage 4 cancer, felt like a brand on my soul. The Philadelphia skyline glittered through the panoramic windows of his cold, minimalist living room. My son was sprawled on a low-profile sofa, scrolling through his phone. My daughter, Isabel, sat beside him, admiring a new watch on her wrist. I had just explained everything, the treatment, the cost, the fragile sliver of hope. My voice cracked as I begged them. "Help us, please. It's for your mother." Julian scoffed. "That's your burden to bear, Dad. Not ours." Isabel's eyes flickered to me, then back to her watch. She nodded in agreement. "She's your mother," I said, stepping forward, the report trembling in my hand. "She gave you everything." My words felt heavy and useless. The air was thick with Isabel's expensive perfume. I placed the report on the glass table between them. Julian pushed it aside with one finger, as if it were a piece of trash. "You think I'm liquidating my assets for a long shot? Get serious." I turned to Isabel. "Say something." She rose and walked to the window, her heels clicking on the polished concrete floor. "We can't afford it, Dad." Her voice was soft, but its indifference cut deeper than her brother's cruelty. I had paid for their elite educations, their first cars, their international vacations. I had worked weekends and holidays to build their futures, while Sarah celebrated their every minor success. And now, in this sterile palace, they acted as if we were strangers. "I gave you everything," I said, my voice rising with a grief-stricken rage. Julian stood up, his designer suit perfectly tailored. "You made your choices. Don't guilt us into fixing your mistakes." The words hit me like a physical blow. I wanted to scream, to shake them until they saw the terror in their mother's eyes. But their expressions, bored and distant, told me it was pointless. I snatched the report from the table and walked to the door. I paused and looked back. Julian was already back on his phone. Isabel was admiring her reflection in the dark glass. The door clicked shut behind me. Their betrayal was no longer just a wound, it was a vow. The engine of my old sedan idled outside Julian's building. The medical report lay on the passenger seat. My hands gripped the steering wheel, knuckles white. "Your burden." The Philadelphia night felt cold and immense. My children had abandoned their mother. Sarah was at home, asleep, unaware. I couldn't bring myself to tell her. She deserved to hold on to hope, even a fabricated one. At our modest home in the suburbs, I crept past her bedroom. In the kitchen, I started making calls. I took out a second mortgage on the house. I sold the sedan we'd owned for 20 years. By sunrise, I had emptied our retirement accounts. It wasn't nearly enough, but it was a start. At the hospital, Sarah lay in her bed, looking pale but managing a smile. "You look so tired, Robert," she whispered. "I'm fine," I lied. "We're handling it." Her hand, thin and cool, squeezed mine. "The kids send their love," I added, the words tasting like ash in my mouth. The doctor was grim. "A month, maybe 2. I paid every dollar I had. The days blurred into a nightmare of hospital visits and insurance calls. Sarah grew weaker. One night, her breathing faltered. I clutched her hand, her wedding ring cold against my skin. "Stay with me," I pleaded. But she was gone. The anger was too raw for tears. Julian and Isabel never called, never visited. They had let her die. I slipped her ring into my pocket. Its weight was a promise. They would pay with everything they valued. Rain fell on the polished wood of Sarah's casket. I stood alone in the cemetery. The priest's words about peace were a hollow drone. I stared at the empty chairs reserved for the family that chose not to come. Back in our empty house, I sank into her favorite armchair. I opened an old photo album. Julian in his first car, the one I worked double shifts to buy. Isabel at her wedding, an extravagant affair we helped finance. Each photo was a testament to a love and sacrifice that had been met with unforgivable indifference. I stopped at a picture of the four of us at the shore, years ago. The happiness on our faces was a mockery. The album hit the floor. "Enough," I said aloud. "They will pay." I wasn't the broken man who had pleaded with them anymore. I found the number for David Chen, a sharp investigator I knew from my old job. He would know how to find the cracks in their perfect lives. I dialed his number, my heart pounding with a grim and steady purpose. Rain streaked the cafe window. I sat in a booth, a notebook open in front of me. An informant from Julian's company, a nervous woman named Maria, slid into the seat opposite me. "I shouldn't be doing this," she whispered. "Tell me about Julian," I said. "He's making risky, off-the-books deals," she said. "He thinks he's untouchable." I scribbled notes. Reputation was Julian's foundation. If I could shatter it, he would collapse. Next, I met with David. "Julian's into some shady ventures," he confirmed, tossing a file on his desk. "If regulators find out, he's done." "And Isabel?" David smirked. "Living on debt. Maxed-out credit cards, unpaid loans. Her lifestyle is a complete facade. I remembered giving her a loan for a business years ago. Now, her lies were my leverage. That night, I sat at my kitchen table, my notebook open. I traced the lines connecting their names to their vulnerabilities. It was a web of their own making. I opened my old laptop and began to type an anonymous email. "You should investigate the private dealings of Julian Croft. Check his offshore accounts." The cursor blinked. I paused, the screen's glow harsh on my face. Was this justice, or was it becoming something else? The laptop's glow cast long shadows in the dark kitchen. Sarah's ring was a heavy weight in my pocket. I remembered her unwavering love for the very children who had forsaken her. They deserve this. I hit send. The message vanished. "Robert has just launched his first attack. Do you think he's justified, or is he going too far? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe to see how this story of retribution ends." The next morning, a news report on the radio caught my attention: local investment firm under scrutiny for unethical practices. My heart leaped. Julian's firm. It was beginning. I could picture the panic in his glass-walled office. The frantic calls. The accusations. Good. I checked the anonymous email account and found a reply: "We are looking into this matter." A text from David came in later: "Julian is spiraling. What did you do?" I didn't answer. I opened my notebook to the page marked with Isabel's name. It was her turn. Julian's phone vibrated across his desk. It was Isabel. "What now?" he snapped. The anonymous tip had triggered a full-blown audit. "Your mess is going to ruin me," she shrieked. "Me?" Julian shot back. "You're the one parading a life you can't afford all over social media. Someone is watching us, Isabel. Someone knows." They were turning on each other, just as I'd planned. From a cafe, I scrolled through Isabel's feed, a gallery of hollow smiles and rented luxury. I wrote another note in my book: "Isabel. Creditors. Apply pressure. At David's office, he slid a folder toward me. Isabel is drowning in debt. 3 missed mortgage payments. Perfect, I said. That night, I wrote an anonymous letter to her primary creditors, detailing her defaults and her deception. I walked to the corner and dropped it in the mailbox. The slot snapped shut with a sound of finality. The shattered glass of a mirror reflected Isabel's panicked face. The creditor's letter trembled in her hand. Her phone rang, a collector. She threw it against the wall. Across town, Julian's boss was on the line. The deal is dead, Julian. The audit has spooked our clients. He slammed his fist on his desk. I sat on a park bench, reading the news on my phone. Croft Financial rocked by scandal. A text from David followed. Isabel is a wreck. The creditors are closing in. Their pain was my design, and it felt like justice. They had left Sarah to die in isolation, now they would know what that felt like. My phone rang. It was Julian. "Dad," he said, his voice broken. "We need to talk." I hung up without a word. A sharp knock came at my door. I opened it to find them on the porch, looking haggard and defeated. "Dad," Julian began. "I lost my job." Isabel's voice cracked. "They're foreclosing on my condo. I'm ruined." "We're sorry, Dad. For everything. For Mom." I stood motionless. I saw the empty chairs at the funeral. "Sorry?" I said, my voice like ice. "You left her to die. We were wrong." Julian pleaded. "You didn't care," I cut him off. "Please," Isabel whispered, tears streaming down her face. "We're family." The word burned. I shut the door in their faces. Later, David met me at a cafe. "You have them broken," he said. "But we can go further. A lawsuit. Reclaim every cent you ever gave them." I thought of Sarah's ring in my pocket. "Do it," I said. That night, a text from David confirmed it, lawsuit filed. Court date is set. I stood at my window. "This is for you, Sarah," I whispered. The Philadelphia courtroom was tense. Across from me, Julian and Isabel looked pale and small. The lawsuit detailed every dollar, over $500,000. The judge called me to speak. I rose, my voice steady. "This isn't about money," I said, my eyes locked on them. "This is about a life they abandoned. Their mother died alone because they wouldn't lift a finger to help. I gave them the world, and they gave her nothing." I held up a stack of papers. "I made their success possible," I declared, "and I engineered their ruin." The tip about Julian's deals. The letters to Isabel's creditors. That was all me. Gasps filled the room. Julian lunged forward. "You destroyed us." Isabel sobbed. The judge slammed his gavel. "You betrayed her," I said, my voice cutting through the chaos. "You betrayed us both. Now, you pay the price." The judge ruled in my favor. I felt no joy, only a grim sense of completion. The victory was hollow. I walked out and headed to the cemetery. The evening sky was a soft pink as I knelt by Sarah's grave. I placed her ring on the cool granite. "It's done," I whispered. "They've paid." I told her everything. The lawsuit, their tears, the cold justice of the courtroom. I had kept my vow, but an ache remained. She had loved them, despite it all. I stood and let the question of what she would have wanted go. The path had been forged by their choices, I had simply followed it to the end. Back home, the house felt lighter. I put away the photo album and the lawsuit papers. I called an old friend. "How about that fishing trip we always talked about?" He laughed. "It's been years, Robert." "It's time to start again," I said, and I meant it. I sat in the quiet dark, holding a photo of Sarah. I had torn down their world not out of hatred, but for the love they had discarded. Their future was not my burden to carry anymore. Justice was done. I wasn't free from grief, but I was finally free from rage. I closed my eyes and slept.